Ken Silva is the editor of Headline USA and the groundbreaking journalist who originally brought us the Thomas Crooks Autopsy back in October. This was only really months, Ken, after the Butler assassination attempt against President Trump, now President Trump, first took place. You've been working with Judicial Watch, correct, to obtain even more records, and you've got some more breakthrough reporting for us today. How are you, Ken?
I'm doing very well. It's great to be with you. And yeah, it's all hopefully culminating this week with not only new records, but I should be publishing my book on this topic. Uh, Hopefully it'll be out by tomorrow. We actually put it up on Amazon yesterday, and I guess it takes 72 hours to review. So once they finally sign off on it, it should be available uh, for everybody to check out. I guess culmination might be the wrong word because it doesn't answer every question, but I think it's going to be the most complete picture of the evidence to date.
Yeah, that's exciting for sure. People can get the book, The Trump Assassination Plots. Great cover, by the way, Ken. This looks like an exciting book. This is what the investigations missed and why it matters. I think we should also mention to people that correct me if I'm wrong, but people still have an opportunity to get a free copy of this book, a signed copy of this book, if they subscribe to you on substack.com/@ Ken Silva. Is that right?
That's right. Paid contributors will get a signed copy from me. And I think we're also going to put the audio book there behind the paywall too. So that's in the works. Hopefully we'll get that out by the anniversary in about what? It's almost exactly 2 months now.
Hmm. That's great. That's a great way for people to enjoy the book, a great way for people to support Ken and independent journalism. And also, don't forget, we're going to have a sponsor exclusive segment to this video right after we're done here that people are going to be able to watch on substack.com/@ Ken Silva, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. So let me take people back for a second, Ken, because maybe, I don't know, maybe people haven't been following this whole time. We do have a lot of new viewers who are with us on the Jason Goodman YouTube channel that was just recently reinstated. Should be 115,000 people watching over there, but you basically at your own expense spent nearly $1,000 and fought a 3-month legal battle to obtain Crooks' autopsy and the toxicology records. You raised certain questions in doing that really still haven't been answered, and various state agencies, I've fought with them in court, you've fought with them in court. They're really fighting this tooth and nail, aren't they?
Yeah, just getting the records was a battle unto itself. I initially requested the reports from both Butler County, where obviously the incident happened, and then Allegheny County, where Crooks's body was transported. I know you don't think it's Crooks, but we maybe get into that later.
Yeah.
But in any event, both jurisdictions denied me. They're kind of playing shell games with the evidence. I had to appeal, finally won the appeal in Allegheny County. And at that point, they wanted to charge me, yeah, like over $750 just for maybe 20 pages. Got it ready. They're going to ship them out to other journalists too after it was my legal battle. So I drove up there and picked them up myself instead of waiting for them to get lost in the mail. And at the time, the records were pretty interesting in themselves. The autopsy report raised questions about who shot Crooks and when. I think, yeah, there was 5 wounds in the body. But I guess biggest revelation didn't come out for almost another year until a random Twitter user informed me, hey, if you looked at the toxicology report, it seems to be missing certain items. And sure enough, there's listed like 7 specimens from Crooks's body that the medical examiner took to test, like hair, bile, blood, eye fluid, things like that. But in the results of the toxicology, it only lists 4 or 5. He didn't test one of the vials of blood. He didn't test the hair, and he didn't test the eye bile. he either didn't test them or he didn't include the results in the report. So to me, that's the biggest thing from that whole. That's probably my biggest scoop on Thomas Crooks himself is this incomplete toxicology report. It's like, what are they hiding?
But didn't you also find out that the guy doing the toxicology had recently come over there from the IDF, or do I have that wrong?
Well, yeah, the medical examiner in Allegheny County went over to Israel after October 7th and helped examine the bodies there that were killed from the Hamas attack. And there's an article in the Pittsburgh Jewish Chronicle where he's pictured next to a guy named Chen Kugel, who is the one of the sources responsible for the unfounded rumors about like beheaded babies and things like that. So I'm not, I'm not suggesting any malfeasance or anything, but it's worth noting that this guy is in Israel after October 7th. And then what, like 8 months later, he's doing Crooks's autopsy
Yeah,
and toxicology. I mean, that's quite the nine
certainly a
month
hell of a
span for this guy.
coincidence, right?
Hell of a coincidence.
How many other U.S. pathologists were over there in Israel after October 7th?
Um, I don't know.
Maybe you don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, this guy obviously, has got loyalty to Israel. He probably wanted to volunteer and help out. So I'm not
But I mean,
ascribing any bad motives to him,
no, but
but
my point is, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but like Israel is not like, you know, Rwanda where there's like four doctors. You think they have, why do they need somebody? It's just very suspicious. And there's a lot of people have a lot of suspicions around all of these assassinations. I wonder, Ken, does this, I mean, look, a lot of people have a lot of ideas that they spit out, sometimes without evidence. People have said that Trump faked the assassination attempt, that it's, people like to say the assassination attempt was staged. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? I mean, obviously,
exactly.
someone planned it, whether it was Thomas Crooks, whether it was Maxwell Urich, whether it was a collection of people working with them and others. But I think what they mean is that Donald Trump or people working with and for Donald Trump got the idea that it would boost the campaign if they, put on a fake assassination. And I have really resisted that idea because I just don't think, I'm not trying to defend anyone in particular. I just don't think that Donald Trump would say, okay, sure, fire bullets at me while I stand there and I trust that you'll miss. Nor do I think that Donald Trump would agree to a plan that would necessarily kill other innocent people in the crowd. But I do want to ask you, in light of the additionally suspicious White House Correspondents' Dinner and the related assassination attempt there, what do you think about all of these things now in retrospect?
Yeah, I've yet to hear a coherent theory for how Butler could have been staged. Because I mean, you keep in mind that like the local cops were within a couple steps of catching the shooter at various points. So unless they were pretending and they were in on it too, it would have required multiple agencies and people we know that were real. It's like, I guess the my favorite theory that I think is funny is that the first bullet that Crooks fired was a drone bullet that knew exactly how to nick Trump's ear. But I mean, still, that's like absolutely no evidence for that. So I found it very dubious, although, uh, yeah, I'm 99% sure it was an authentic event. That said, I have, I don't even think I want to go there. I mean, I did find this weird, okay, I found this weird QAnon account that in June 2024, did say that Trump was going to stage his own assassination attempt. So the timing there is very weird, but the account also made about 100 other false predictions. And I think this is kind of like a QAnon conspiracy for years that Trump would do something like that. But maybe after we go behind the paywall, we could play that. It's on my feed. I'll find it when we go to break if people want to subscribe and see what the hell that's about. But no, I mean, the bullets were real, the blood was real, the bodies were real. I've been spending weekends looking at like medical papers of bullet graze wounds.
Oh
If
yeah.
like if it would have grazed his ear, it would have produced a pretty big cut that would have bled a lot, but it still could have healed properly. So it's plausible that he did get shot in the ear. And then after going through, if this was some elaborate conspiracy, why wouldn't they just have scarred his ear to make it look even more authentic? So I've yet to hear any really good argument for how it could have been staged.
I agree with you. I don't think that Trump made this up. I think he was authentically shot. As you pointed out, I think you and I disagree as to who did the shooting. And I do think there were certainly individuals in local law enforcement who have been behind the cover up and possibly even, you know, the distractions that allowed someone to be on the roof. There's just so many weird things about it. Possibly the strangest unanswered question in my mind, and I know that you can't possibly have the answer to this, but when Trump won in 2024, I certainly presumed that investigating this further, doing a more complete investigation of an attempt on his own life would be something that he would do. But instead, he's embraced who, in my view, is an obvious liar, Jack Posobiec, and his idiotic account of events. He said that he thinks the FBI did a good job investigating. The Secret Service is doing a great job of letting people run into hotels and try to shoot them. It doesn't make a lot of sense the way Donald Trump has behaved around all these events, does it?
No, and that's the million-dollar question is why is he so quiet about this? Why does he not know more accurate information about the attempts on his own life? I mean, after this White House Correspondents' Dinner attack, he's doing his press conference and he says, well, they did a lot better job than they did in Butler. Butler, the only good person was the sniper. I call him David. And he responded in 4.2 seconds and put a bullet through Crooks's neck from 448 yards away. And it's like neither one of those things are true. And that's one of the biggest scandals of the whole Butler shooting is that the sniper David, his name is David King, waited 15 seconds to respond fire. It was actually a local cop who responded first within the first 6 seconds. And then it's like another 9 or 10 seconds, and the sniper puts the final shot through the would be assassin. And he wasn't 448 yards away. He was on the barn behind Trump. It was about 150 yards away. So I don't know if he's just getting briefed with bad information or he just doesn't want to let on what he knows, but it's really incomprehensible.
It really is. It's very frustrating the amount of false information that we seem to be constantly exposed to. For people who want relief from that, I would recommend that they check out headlineusa.com. Ken, you're the editor there. You've got a story up here about the FBI records. So let's talk about this latest
Yeah.
FOIA release here. And first of all, how it came about, and are there any breakthrough documents here?
And this is thanks again to Judicial Watch, the DC Transparency Organization. They filed a lawsuit last July around the 1 year anniversary when it became apparent that this new FBI wasn't going to just be disclosing records voluntarily. They got a pretty favorable ruling in January. The FBI responded that they have 45,000 pages of responsive documents, which is a story in itself because, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have repeatedly insisted that they've disclosed everything there is to know about this case, but they're either ignorant or they're just lying because this Judicial Watch lawsuit, we have it in black and white, 45,000 pages. That was January. The FBI's been making monthly disclosures ever since that kind of update in the lawsuit, only about 40 or 50 pages a month. So at this rate, it's going to take decades and decades to get the entire archive. So hopefully Judicial Watch can file some kind of motion and say, hey, they need to disclose 5,000 pages a month or something. Like you could do that with FOIA lawsuits, and I think there's a public interest here. The documents themselves, there have been a few interesting ones. There's one that showed that Thomas Crooks went to the hospital in, I think, May 2024. That was in the first batch of documents. There's one about somebody supposedly seeing Crooks get into an altercation before the shooting. Uh, but nothing too revelatory. I think the most interesting thing that I found is in this latest batch, we've seen that's in the first couple pages, it says that some of these documents are still sealed pursuant to a court order. And then later on down, there's redactions and exemptions that list B7D as the reason for why they're blacking out the content. And the thing about B7D of FOIA is that's the exemption they use to hide the identity of FBI informants. So
Hmm.
we know now that the FBI was tapping into its network of informants as part of its investigation. What those informants possibly could have been telling the Bureau, we have little to no idea. There was one story in the Washington Post about how an FBI informant overseas gave them a tip that Iran was involved, which I think is totally unfounded. But that we're talking about pages and pages of FBI records that were drawn from informant information. So um, I think that's probably the most interesting disclosure that we've gotten yet.
It's a lot of white boxes, not that much information. Now,
Ridiculous.
it is ridiculous. Now, you said earlier that either Dan Bongino and Kash Patel are ignorant or deliberately lying. To be fair, Ken, isn't it possible that both are true?
Yeah, that's certainly, yeah, there is option C, all of the above.
Right. Yeah. And just to go deeper into what you're saying about FBI informants and these being reports from FBI informants, a lot of people have speculated that there are FBI informants who just interact with us on social media. In fact, I think it's been documented that the FBI and other agencies specifically have people who are tasked with going into the social media environment and interacting. You know, you did an interview with Steve Baker and Steve Friend, and we've had many conversations about Kyle Seraphin, our doubts about him. People who watch this channel know that 10 years ago when I started, I was interacting with George Webb. There's a lot of reason to believe that at least some of these people might be FBI informants, FBI adjacent. George Webb told us he was interviewed by the FBI in jail in Zanesville, Ohio. And for some reason, the FBI never spoke to me when I called the FBI about that incident. They refused to take my calls. I asked them, why didn't anybody question me about this? So isn't it possible that sometimes the FBI puts informants there, then those informants inform the FBI, they create these giant reports that are basically filled with nonsense, but this gets written on a page and it becomes some sort of official account of something that maybe never happened?
Well, we saw that. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, we saw that with the Epstein files, where a lot of the stuff that's getting taken as, God's truth, just because an FBI informant said it and, the agent wrote it down on a piece of paper and then it gets published
Right,
5 to 10 years later. That doesn't mean anything. The FBI, yeah, they record things for posterity and also possibly for disinformation.
right.
When it comes to the Epstein files, we saw tips that Trump was compromised by Israel, which may be true, but I actually know the FBI informant who told his handlers that. It's a guy named Chuck Johnson, and I was able to find that out because Chuck gave me a very similar report, and the FBI serial number for like his identifying number as an informant was the same number in the document that I have as was released in the Epstein files. So we know that came from Chuck Johnson, who he might be right, but I don't think he has any firsthand knowledge.
That was so good that you figured that out. But I mean, this is exactly the point that I'm getting at. This is essentially a well-known tactic by the FBI to sort of launder information. You know, something is said in an interview, in an FBI 302, they write it down. And, another example of this is, so you were talking about in the Epstein files, there's allegations against Trump. Well, anybody can make any allegation they want in a civil lawsuit. And in fact, it's a popular way to do it because the individuals making those allegations, it's considered a privileged statement when it's made in a lawsuit. If you just go on a podcast and accuse X, Y, and Z person of whatever crime, it's defamation. But if you allege in a civil lawsuit some kind of a tort, like whatever it is that's alleged against Trump or anyone for that matter, you are protected from any kind of defamation claims because it's a privileged statement. And then people see that, whether it's online in a tweet or in an FBI release like this, and suddenly, as you said, they take it as gospel when in fact it could be completely made up.
Yeah, we even saw that with the Trump assassination attempt in Butler, where that Hadassah Feinberg lady filed a criminal complaint in Butler County alleging a complex conspiracy involving Joe Biden and Josh Shapiro and a number of other actors. And the thing in Butler County is that you're allowed to file a private criminal complaint with the DA, and they're obligated to at least do cursory investigation into the complaint. And so she files this complaint, and then it comes out this official looking document showing her allegations, and everybody's like, oh, there was a criminal complaint filed. But no, that doesn't mean anything. Anybody can do that, just like anybody that can file a civil lawsuit and say pretty much whatever they want.
I think that was also pretty unique to Pennsylvania, that an individual had the ability to file some sort of criminal thing. But you're right. I mean, this is happening all the time. And in fact, I'm glad you brought up this person, Hadassah. I interviewed her when that all came out, and just on a personal level, like, anybody can do this. When you meet someone or speak to them on Zoom or whatever, you get a vibe of like, is this person on the level or are they out of their mind? And on the spectrum of, 1 being on the level and 10 being out of their mind, she was going up to 11, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is basically a tactic, right? There are people who are almost like legal hitmen. And I mean, I think it's important that we flesh that out for a second. You think about organized crime or any kind of big thing like that. John Gotti, if he wants to push the button on somebody in Secaucus, he's not taking the PATH train over there and doing it himself. You get some 19-year-old criminal who nobody knows, and somebody meets him at a restaurant and hands him $5,000 in a bag, and something goes sideways. We don't know that guy. He's just a criminal. I think there's a lot of people who act like cutouts like that, who just bring vexatious legal actions for, maybe we don't know the purpose, but it's basically a tried and true process that, I'll mention it again, George Webb and his brother have been doing this to me for 10 years, Ken. And a lot of people think that they're doing that, oh, he's crazy, Jason is jealous. I want people to just contemplate for a moment, 10 years. That is a long time. Most crazy people would have their crazy attention distracted by something else. Most normal people would have things happening in their lives that would take their resources and time away from something like that. It's hard to imagine someone or something having the focus and the resources to stay on something like that. And by the way, it's not like I stole the patent for the full duplex cordless radio telephone and I'm making billions of dollars that they're seeking to recover. I have basically, in the grand scheme of things, essentially no money, but yet there's been 10 years of litigation pursuing me. It's just a very strange thing in my mind.
Yeah, as they say, the process is the punishment, and that's certainly the case with this civil lawfare that's going on. That's exactly right.
So we've got a lot more to discuss with these FBI documents. I definitely want to get into our ongoing disagreement about the identity of the dead individual on the roof. I think you might have seen some nuggets since we last spoke about it that at least remind you of why I think that. We're going to get into that all right now. So I hope people will join us on substack.com/@. Ken Silva. Don't forget, if you are not yet subscribed to Ken on Substack, it's a great way to get his forthcoming book, The Trump Assassination Plots, and it's going to tell you everything you need to know about what the investigations missed and why it mattered. If, like me, you don't have the attention span to focus and read a book, you're going to be able to get access to the audio version of the book on substack.com/@KenSilva. But a lot of people are also busy. You can listen to it while you're working out, driving to work, whatever it might be, cooking dinner. You can also join us for the sponsor exclusive segment right now on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsource.